Hello, everyone. It's Rachel here, and I am going to share my thoughts on self compassion. And why am I teaching self compassion? Why am I now calling myself a self compassion specialist? I think that to call yourself a specialist, it means you've been using something for so long that you've found out what it's really capable of. It's a tool. Self-compassion is an activity, it's a behavior, and it's something you can use to overcome pretty much anything in your life, as far as I see it. Just about everything, maybe everything. Maybe everything. I don't know, because I haven't experienced everything, but I've experienced a lot. I've experienced a lot of hurt, a lot of harm, and a lot of phases and time frames in my life all along the way when I really needed to later on forgive myself, forgive others, see things in a new perspective, grow inner strength, and to grow out of those experiences. And for a long time, I wasn't growing out of those experiences. For a long time, I was repeating the patterns. And for a long time, I was continually self-destructive, getting hurt by others, putting myself in situations that were not healthy at all. And what it took for me to come out of all that was self-compassion. And yes, other compassion, from others, support from others, really support and witnessing by others through their eyes of compassion for me in my experience. I had a lot of shame about my lifestyle choices. I had a lot of shame about my past and my upbringing because I didn't know how to talk about it with others. I felt insecure about sharing my true self with people. I felt like I needed to put on a lot of masks and show up for people the way that I thought they wanted me to be. Show up for people the way that I thought I needed to show up for so that I could be liked, loved, so that I could be safe or taken care of. And those are things that I'm still working through, and I think I probably always will be, I think this is a lifelong journey of paying attention to yourself. So paying attention to the self, paying attention to your ego. What is the ego doing? Paying attention, really paying attention, but with a quality of curiosity, of inquisitiveness. And it really takes some time to get there, because what is in the way of that is the judge, the critic, right? And this is this imprint that we've been living with forever, for so long. We can't even remember when we haven't had the judge as an archetype in our reality as human beings. Can you? And as much as I'm frustrated by that, I'm tolerating that frustration with deep compassion for this human condition that we find ourselves in. And so, how is it that there's this energy that's created by simply using compassion as a tool to transform hurt, to transform pain, to transform the feeling of inadequacy, to transform maybe feelings that you're not able to do something, not good enough, not enough of this or enough of that, or Maybe there's times you self-sabotage, like I have been known to do many times in my life. There were many years where that was my modus operandi, and that was my escape. That was me running from the things that I needed to sit with. I didn't know how to sit with this stuff, I just didn't have the tools yet. I didn't know how to really hold space. I didn't know what boundaries were. I mean, I remember the first time I learned about what a boundary was. And I've told this story before, but I'll tell it again and again. And it was my first Reiki training with my first Reiki teacher. And this was in 2000. Oh my God, what year was that? 2002? 2003. And we were taking a class at his. Actually, he would have these community gatherings called Reiki shares. And if you know what a Reiki share is, well, if you don't, it's you get together in groups and you share energy and give and receive Reiki, which is just a way to hold space for source energy to flow. And we all, I mean, you can call it whatever you want to call it. It's just the energy of life. And chi, that's another word for it, prana, kundalini. These are all words that we use, not necessarily interchangeably, but they're different qualities. You can think of energy of like, there's the earth energy, there's our physical metabolic energy. I mean, this is stuff that I've been practicing for so long now that it's just innate in my knowing. But there was a time when I did not. I think a part of me got it on a soul level, and I never really lost that connection with spirit. I always knew that there was more to life than meets the eye, and that there was energy, but I didn't really know how to work with it. I didn't have the vocabulary, the inner connection with it to make it my own, which is really about intuitiveness. I know I'm going on a little tangent here, but this is important to the topic of self-compassion for healing everything. Because when we were gathered at my Reiki teacher's house, Gary, if you're out there and if you ever watch this, thank you for your impact that you made on my life and being part of my journey and all along the way. Many people that I have been fortunate enough to receive support and guidance from. So thank you, Gary. Gary, you said something during one of the Reiki shares that I went to, and Gary asked me this question, everyone. He said, he didn't just ask me, he asked all of us. He said, okay, well, get your journals out, have a piece of paper and pen. We're going to go into this topic. And the topic of tonight is, and he said, it's boundaries. And I was like, interesting. I thought I was here to learn about energy. Boundaries? What? What is he talking about? He said, I want you to write down a sentence or some words about, what boundaries do you have in your life? And I was like, there's a fence around my yard, I think. There's some walls that I see when I walk down the street. The edge of the sidewalk, there's a boundary before the road. I mean, really, this is honestly all I knew of what a boundary was at that time, 27, I think it was. 27, by the way, is what we call the Saturn return in your birth chart. Yeah, it's a big year. It's a big time. But 27, 28, 29, late 20s, right? Makes sense. You're still kind of like young and maybe dabbling in being a child still. And like I was, I've always kind of had this wisdom about me, right? Where I kind of knew how to handle situations and I had a certain level of maturity in some ways, but in many areas I was very lost and undeveloped and just kind of muddling my way through and kind of faking it till you make it. I was a good actress. Like, I'm fine, I'm good, everything's cool. That, by the way, is a trauma response. It's a trauma response. That's what we do to sort of like deflect so that nobody looks at you and worries about you. You don't want anybody to like look at you and wonder. So you just kind of like put on a good show, Something I got very good at. Like I said before, I was a good actress. So boundaries, I'm sitting there in this class and I'm like, what the hell? And, but then he starts to explain something about them, about relationships. And he starts asking questions about our relationships in our lives. Boy. So yeah, boundaries. And that was really my first little drop of water in it that created a ripple into the future of my life to help me understand how to not take on everyone else's stuff. How to not let all of that energy that I feel, because I'm a deep feeler. I don't know about you. Probably are. If you're watching this, you're probably a feeler like me. That nowadays we call it highly sensitive or empath. But really, we're all feelers. That's what it means to be human. It's just how many walls do we have up between us that have gotten in the way of our natural capacity to feel. And because of all the hurt, because of all the traumas in our lives, we have created walls of protection around ourselves and around our hearts, which have made it very difficult to connect. Now, judgment, compassion, inquisitiveness, boundaries. These are all things that are important for us to understand if we're going to grow as a human race, aren't they? When I started to discern the difference between my energy and others' energies and realize that what I'm feeling isn't necessarily always mine, I started to realize that. That was a big epiphany for me. And then as I started to do work with others, and when I first started training in Reiki, I had no inkling or thought or desire or knowledge that I was ever going to become a Reiki healer or a yoga teacher or any of that stuff for that matter. I thought I might want to teach some yoga on the physical side of it because I had been a dancer my whole life, which is another story. I still am. Once a dancer, always a dancer. Once an artist, always an artist. But I started noticing that in my sessions with other people, how powerful, and this is something that all the wisdom teachers have talked about and taught through the ages, of how to be in our presence, how to hold space. And so when we engage in the activity of non-judgment of another human being and sit with them and give them the room that they need to simply express themselves and be seen and witnessed and validated for their experience, something magical happens. Now, Carl Rogers, the great psychologist, they coined that person-centered term, person-centered counseling, person-centered, where you're in the presence of personhood with another, in full validation and acceptance of who and what this other person is sitting across from you. And that's something that I practiced a lot in my training as a mental health counselor and found out that it's very powerful. And in my training as a mindfulness facilitator, I found out even more how powerful that is. And then in discovering that we can do that for ourselves, epiphany, wow. We can actually be the compassionate witness for ourselves too. Okay? Now, when we're together and we bring compassion into the room, something amazing happens. A whole new vibration comes into play. It's not just you and not just me. It's we, but it's a we that's held in an energy called compassion. And just by the virtue and the nature of being witnessed this way, and of switching our language whenever we start to go into this judgment language or we start to notice it, there's a technique that you can do to change that judgment into compassionate inquiry, into more of a question, more of an invitation that says, I want to know more about that. I'm curious about this. I'd like to understand this a little deeper. Versus, it is this way, and this is what it means, and this is what you should be doing, and this is how it should be, and this is how it isn't, and this is how I want it to be, and all of that stuff. We can soften it, we can switch it, we can change it. And this takes a little effort, it takes some doing, and it takes some desire. So this we energy, this us energy, this thing that happens between us, when we bring in you and me plus compassion, that's actually the fourth way, because you and me actually equals 3. You might have heard this metaphor before. We're not just two people here. We are in a relationship, and the relationship between us is creating a third energy, a third thing, a third identity, personality. You might have noticed that in your conversations with people. You're different with this person maybe, and different with that person maybe. It's because our qualities of expression shared bring out a whole other beautiful thing. And then when you add compassion, that's like this next level. Then it's easier and easier to not hide from ourselves and not hide from each other. It's easier to be vulnerable. That word vulnerable can sometimes make people feel scared. Like, uh-oh, I'm vulnerable to attack. But here's the thing. Vulnerability, and I know Brene Brown, the great researcher of these things, look her up, Brene Brown, if you haven't heard of her before. She's done a lot of work on this whole thing of vulnerability and how vulnerability is actually a strength. She's done a lot of research on that. I think it surprised her in her research. And so that's why she does a lot of talking about it, because she realized, wow, this is news. We need to share this. So I'm spreading the good word too about compassion, my friends. And I'm taking it to the next level with this new course called The Art of Self-Compassion. I have a few spots left. It starts on Thursday, April 21st. I'd love for you to join me. We go deeper into all this, and we hold space for your personal situation, dynamics at play in your life now, this time. We hold space for that in a beautiful container. The thing is, when we get together in groups like this, and bring in all that compassion and non-judgment and acceptance, it is just incredible what happens. I've been seeing this again and again and again in all my work in these years of teaching classes and workshops and new moon circles and full moon circles and sound healings and meditations and online courses and coaching groups. My goodness. The one thing I know to be true is that it is self-compassion that is doing the work so that we can grow, so that we can create, so that we can express ourselves in an authentic way without the need to try to make it sound like the way we think someone wants it to be heard. Living in alignment with your true self, what does that mean to you? That's the question I'm posing to us today as I drop the mic on this video. What does it mean to live in alignment with your inner truth? What if you could? What if you did? What if we all did? What if we all did that? What if we all lived in alignment with our true truth? Without all that other stuff in the way. So I guess I'm an idealist. I have hope. I'm a pragmatist. I'm skeptical. sometimes too, but I have deep hope because I can see it happening. I can see the possibility. I can see the possibility of everyone starting to do that. And then I can see what a world it could be. All right. Well, I hope you join me for this course. Think about it. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll put the link below, and registration closes on Monday. Coming up here quick. This is Thursday night, April 14th. So closes in just about 4 days. And that gives me a little pause in between the registration process and the first day of the course on Thursday to come into stillness and prepare myself to engage with you all in the course. So I think there are 4 spots left. There are very generous payment plans available. If you need any assistance with that at all, please just let me know. Good night, everyone. Peace and blessings. Ciao.